Hello, everyone. Welcome. So, welcome to day 18. I'm really glad you all are here. Right. So, as people are joining in, I like many days I started with just start with one slow breath and be fully present. Today is one yet another most important, interesting session. And I would say this would be some way an eye opener. So that's the reason I would insist please be fully present. So, are you ready? All right, let's go ahead. So, as we know, in the past few days, we have spoken about emotional survival patterns, identity confusion, purpose, then emotional exhaustion, people pleasing, nervous system regulation, and reconnecting with who we truly are beneath the conditioning. Right? We could connect the dots from the day one till yesterday. And today's conversation again connects deeply to all of the patterns or, symptoms that we saw or talked about and discussed in detail, understood the entire depth of it, like why this thing happened, what are the root cause of it, and all that. And also, we gave you some kind of, we also touched upon what are the small practices that you can include in everyday life. What are those moments or certain rituals that you can do it every day, or say situations based rituals. So because many people spend years struggling about all of this. Now, one more thing which a lot of people struggle, I want to talk about this today. That is comparison. Do you agree? Many people spend years comparing themselves to others without fully understanding how differently human beings are naturally wired. Some people naturally learn through logic, some through creativity, some through movement, some through observation, some through emotions and connection. Agreed? And when people don't understand their natural strengths, they often mistake difference for inadequacy. Yes, you heard me right. They often mistake all of this as a flaw, and that creates years of unnecessary self doubt. Now imagine, we all have heard story of Dhoni. He has gone through a lot of phases where he tried an different career, and you have also seen how this impacted him. And when he found out what was the right career, what he is meant for, what when he started understanding his core strength, his natural strength, there was no looking back, isn't it? However, there was a stage where, yes, you do face certain challenges to prove yourself, to perform, or to make sure whatever is the natural strength is also accepted around your own environment. Do you all agree, or are you aware of the story that I just told about famous MS Dhoni? I would like to, read certain yeses. Yeah? Come on, we all know about it. Many people know about it. And if someone doesn't know much, I would say just read about him. You will learn a lot. So, like I said, if we are unaware of our strength, that causes self doubt. And today we are going to talk about natural strengths, brain dominance, learning patterns, which are very essential, and how understanding yourself more deeply can completely change your confidence, your direction, and emotional well being. This is all linked. We will understand once you go further. So that's the reason I always say stay till the end to learn everything scientifically, proper research based. Everything will make sense. Why and what of everything here. So there's something heartbreaking I have noticed repeatedly while working with both teenagers and adults. So many intelligent people grow up believing they are not good enough simply because they were measured in the wrong way. Let me explain this. Some children are brilliant in creativity. However, constantly compared academically. There is a challenge in this. Some are emotionally intelligent, however, made to feel weak because they are sensitive. Some learn experientially, however, are forced into environments that only rewards memorization. Does that sound relatable? I'm sure many of the teenagers, if they are watching this, live or maybe later on the recording, they will completely resonate with this. I remember one of my client, I was talking with the parent, and what I found out was the good part is that the parent was interested. So in the initial conversation, it seemed as if nothing is required. Everything is sorted at this point. However, there was a curiosity about how probably I can help him, or what is in it for him, and, or say differently, his kid. So I started talking about, understanding first about the kid, uh, what type of personality, or what is his usual task. And with the growing conversation, one thing openly came up, that that is the usual challenge many teenagers face. And as I said, due to the comparison, we often not able to give them that correct environment to grow. So when I was talking to that parent, he came up that my son, probably today he said he wanted to become X. I don't want to mention complete, what they said, but I will just give you a gist of it. Like today, my son said he wants to become this, and he was actually going through certain book for self help book, and then Suddenly, after a week, he said, I think I'll be good at this. Probably I will prefer to go and pursue Y as my career. And that boy we are talking about is a teenage. Then, after one more week, that entire X and Y got negated, and there was another career choice that was Z. Now, the challenge here is, as that kid was exposed, or was experiencing it in the early stage, he was getting all the options. And the parent, like his father, was able to figure out that yes, this is something would help the kid to identify, and it is necessary for his kid to know what would be best. And there are, I mean, he also understood that we have to figure out those methods to make sure he gets to the real career choices. Because at the end, he admitted that my son was so frustrated after a month or two after reading this book for a while as a self help, that there was literally these words said, that I am so confused that I don't want to read this book, it is not helping me, and please leave me alone for some time. So these were certain statements which was given to me, and it was very interesting because, and the best part, again, I would like to appreciate his parent, that his parent was aware that this is something we have to sit together and work with the kid to understand what kind of personality he is, what side of intellectual he is holding, and most importantly, what is his dominance, like brain dominance is, what is his learning patterns is all about, how we can identify his natural strengths. Yes, and I would say that when you hear this thing from a parent, I would say that kid is the luckiest, because this makes things so much easier, because it's not something, um, you know this way we are not going to force the kid to certain path which he's not meant for. Yes, truly, that's the reason, as I said, like, if when we say that person, we are trying to push him for some, say, maybe he's brilliantly creative into something. However, we are just focusing the academic part of it, that okay, do this, otherwise where your career is going to go. And these are very small yet critical aspect of the life of the kid, and when done in the early stage, that can actually bridge lot of gap, and then actually save his crucial years, and most important, his crucial, tender years, where his self confidence is just getting established. Because this is the period, I would say, from 8, or say the early teens, till he is mature enough to go to college to explore his career choices. We are building that strong, uh, what do you call it, the environment for him to grow, that self confidence, self worth. We are building all of that, and that can only be done when he is confident in his own world, in his own choices. And over time, I would say, people slowly stop seeing their strengths if this is not figured out at the right time. And the worst part is, they start obsessing over their weakness. Really, they start obsessing over their weaknesses. And psychologically, that affects much more than confidence. It affects their identity, career choices, motivation, then learning ability. They will lose their natural ability, this, peace of mind to even study the basic of things. And I have seen that around. While talking to many teenagers, to talking to the parents, and I said that I really appreciate when the parents talk about this openly. And most importantly, the emotional health of it, the self esteem, because no one bothers about the emotional health. And once the emotional health goes down, it impacts the entire life cycle of your kid's journey, from the childhood to college, then the adulthood. Because, when people repeatedly feel misunderstood, they begin disconnecting from their natural abilities. And this is why self awareness matters so deeply. Does this give you that kind of a, clarity what I'm talking about? Does this give you any kind of relevance that maybe you have seen around? If yes, I would really like you to say either yes or whatever that resonates with this thought. I would like you to write it in here. And today we are going to understand how natural strengths influence learning and behavior, what brain dominance means psychologically, how DMIT helps create self awareness, and why understanding your natural patterns early can prevent years of confusion later. And again, for those of you joining me for the first time, hi, I'm Ashita Bakshi. I'm a life coach specializing in emotional intelligence, a counseling psychologist, a DMIT counselor, and I also work with healing practices like pranic, Reiki, and crystal healing. And my work really focuses on helping people understand themselves more deeply, emotionally, psychologically, and naturally. Because many people today are not struggling due to the lack of potential abilities. They are struggling because they have spent years trying to become someone they were never naturally designed to be. This is very crucial line. I would like to repeat it. They were trying to become someone they were never naturally designed to be. And again, this is too connected to my heart. This topic is really connected to my heart because I see people struggling. I see many people, not able to figuring out things. And when self understanding is missing, trust me, people begin comparing constantly, doubting themselves, choosing careers based only on pressure. And just imagine what could be the outcome. What could be the outcome? Or say they are forcing themselves into environments that emotionally drain them. That's why I gave you the story of MS Dhoni. How it could be emotionally draining, that where your mind is somewhere else, your heart is somewhere else. However, you're just the body, just the structure is with the current state. That's not something gonna help anyone. And that's why understanding your natural strengths becomes so very important. Not for labeling people, not for limiting people, yet for helping people grow with greater awareness, confidence, and alignment. Just imagine if someone just understand that, yes, I am meant for this creative artwork, and you would see there will be traces where they will show up all of this. Like, say, we talk about the greatest dancers. What if we would have forced them that, okay, you go ahead and do, study this, become engineer or become XYZ from the pressure, from the environment that they have received? Will they able to do or perform well? And even like I said in my previous sessions till day 17, they might be performing because that intelligence or the pressure would let them do that, but they will gradually start emotionally disconnected from themselves, and that is the biggest pain that anybody could go through throughout their lifetime. That's why I always say, whenever you invest on DMIT to figure out what is the natural strength, whether it be your kid, teenagers, or be an adult who have already crossed that line and where they are in that stuck mode, they can figure it out where exactly I have gone wrong so that we can still try to put that across before it is too late, before we get into that disappointment mode so much that we can't come back. That's why I say that DMIT or such tools are basically kind of an insurance for whatever investment you make, whether for the studies of your kid or whether upskilling of your of the adult, anybody. This becomes extremely important even for the married couples. That makes things easier to understand what kind of, you know intelligence or what kind of patterns they have. Amazed of that, things becomes pretty much easier. Let me share one more experience. I remember working with a young student who was constantly being described as distracted and inconsistent. And this is, I have been hearing it pretty much often around. And we often tend to connect that with their academics. The child was intelligent. He, that person was curious, creative, full of ideas. I mean, when I sat with that girl, I was shocked. I mean, how come this much brilliant ideas one person can have? And she wanted to start something of her own. Just imagine, you know a 15-year-old girl having that imagination. And those were not vague, those were not something like insensible. I mean, definitely that language should not come, but I'm talking in the perspective so that it becomes very much relatable. So it's not that for the sake of I'm saying that those ideas were really valid. She had a complete plan of establishing things at so early stage. Yet academically, the confidence had become extremely low because everywhere she went, the focus was always on what was not working. That is the biggest challenge we have. We try to always focus on what is not working, what has gone wrong. We never think or appreciate about the small things, about the small uh, you know good part or the best part of any person. We try to criticize on small things. You didn't do this, you didn't do that, you always keep mess, you always mess up with that. Have you ever tried to figure out or appreciate that Yes, you are doing this so nicely. You have done this brilliantly. I really glad that you have such an amazing, ideas. Have you ever thought of doing that? And yes, the parents were worried. The child had slowly started believing, maybe I'm just not capable enough. I'm always said, once there was a line that came up from her that I'm always been taught that I am not good enough into anything. And during our conversation, I noticed something important. The child would light up emotionally while discussing the ideas, the visual imagination of that. When creating a story on the entire, store, probably the thing that she wanted to have, or say we just came up with some kind of a problem into that and then we tried to resolve it, or working on some hands-on activities. So even though all of this was so much prominent, however, the learning environment around the child rewarded only one type of intelligence. And this is something I see very often. Many children are not weak learners, they are misunderstood learners. And when someone repeatedly feels misunderstood, what do you think would be the outcome? What do you think the result would be? The nervous system slowly starts associating learning with pressure instead of that curiosity that could help them to grow, to think what they could really do. Because when we stop that, which is definitely eventually going to impact their confidence big time, there will be no motivation to go ahead. The focus will definitely will off, because they are not doing something which really connects them that emotionally. And these days we often label teenagers, they don't want to understand, they are very hyper, they don't want to focus on anything, and XYZ we keep on hearing around. However, have you ever thought of what what is something which can really connect them emotionally, or say in other words, emotional well-being? And once we started understanding the child's natural learning patterns and strengths more deeply, so the first thing I suggested was this DMIT analysis. And with the DMIT, I also provide the counseling with the parents along with the kid to understand how things are, to discuss the report. And once we did that along with the parents, this made the difference. Eventually people, the parents understood that yes, this is the learning pattern. Okay, my kid has these many strengths. More deeply they could understand the kid, and something shifted. And that was the happiest moment for me. The child stopped seeing themselves as less intelligent. Yes, because I would say no kid is born with lack of intelligence. No kid is born with some kind of lack of confidence. Have you seen a baby worried about, oh my god, I just have two teeth, or I don't have teeth? When they are just few months old, 1 year old, even when they are losing their teeth, do you see them that kind of a lack of confidence that, oh my god, I don't have teeth, how will I face the world? Those lack of confidence, those shaming on our look, our appearance, we have taught them somehow, knowingly, unknowingly. And that goes terrible, right? Down the line, when they grow up, they start believing that as their identity, which is not good. And why I say that was the best day, because when the child stopped believing themselves as less intelligent, even the parents stopped comparison. And slowly, gradually, learning became emotionally safer again. And that changed everything. That really changed everything. Because human beings grow faster in environments where they feel understood. That's a fact. So let's understand core, you know, core information about DMIT, brain dominance, and natural strengths. And also, we understand this scientifically. So, every human brain processes information differently. We all know that. Yes or yes? Right. So, neuroscience shows that different regions of the brain contribute differently to first logical processing, creativity, language, emotions, visual learning, motor coordination, decision making, and problem solving. And while every individual uses the whole brain, people often show natural preferences and dominant processing patterns. Some naturally process visually, some analytically, some emotionally, some kinesthetically, or some through observation and experience. Let me take just one thing. You will see some people um, will be able to more better learn when they are able to visualize certain things or write it down. Someone will, sometimes they will observe more and experience it. That mainly happens with the kids. Like, certain kids will like to experience everything before doing certain things. So there are a lot of learning patterns that people might have, I mean, anybody can have naturally. And understanding these patterns early can create enormous self-awareness. And this is where tools like DMIT becomes useful. So DMIT full form is dermatoglyphics multiple intelligence test. What it does is, through the fingerprint, which is again science backed, is used as a self-awareness and assessment tool that studies, like I said, the fingerprints in relation to the brain development tendencies and learning preferences. And while it should never be used as a rigid label or limitation, I always like to add this here. It can become a powerful starting point for understanding natural inclinations, say, especially for students, teenagers, parents, even career guidance, or say, people with learning difficulties, or say, even confidence building and emotional development, most importantly. Because one of the biggest emotional mistakes people make is this: they compare someone's weakness with another person's natural strength. Maybe one kid is great artist, great, probably they have natural ability to, uh, you know use their creativity in art. And whereas we try to fit them into some other labels. And psychologically, constant comparison activates stress response. That's why the biggest thing or the first important thing I always stop is stop comparing your kid with someone else. Never compare your kid with saying that, okay, this person is doing that, why can't you do that? You can't force an apple to become a banana, right? It's a very silliest example, but that's something which came in my mind immediately. Just imagine a fruits talking to each other and somebody says to an apple that, okay, you look like banana. Can it become banana? No. That's something really funny, but that is harsh truth. And just imagine how much stress it could cause. That will damage their self confidence to the core, where they will even, you know, uh, like even they will think 100 times to take that small step. And let me explain this. Research in educational psychology and Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory shows that intelligence is multidimensional. Not everyone is designed to excel in the exact same way. And when children grow up constantly feeling, I am not good enough, I am behind, I am not as good as others, those beliefs eventually become emotional identity. And this is why self awareness changes the confidence level also. When people understand, just imagine when people understand how they learn, what naturally energizes them, what environment support them, and what strengths they carry, they stop fighting themselves constantly. And instead of building your entire life around this pressure, they build or they start building from awareness. How beautiful the life could be when it is done this way. And another important thing to understand is this, that natural strength does not mean life become effortless, because we tend to have this mindset कि ये करने से प्रॉब्लम खत्म हो जाएगी, लाइफ स्मूथ हो जाएगी. नहीं, being a human being, there won't be a simple steady line. So, understanding natural strength does not mean life becomes effortless. It simply means growth becomes more aligned. That struggle will disappear where you are trying to fit into someone else's shoes forcibly without understanding yourself. Because even strength requires your discipline, emotional regulation, and guidance. And trust me, when effort aligns with natural inclination, people experience more engagement, more emotional connection, and sustainable growth. There won't be any looking back because they are doing somewhere which is connecting them from inside. Let's do, because this is what I wanted to make you understand about the DMIT and brain dominance and how these entire concept work. So let's start with some strength reflection. Like I want always to end the session with some kind of an exercise or a ritual. So let's do something together today. Take a slow deep breath in and exhale slowly. So when you deep breathe in, count 4 in mind, then exhale slowly a bit longer. count 6 in mind. Take another deep, slow breath in and exhale slowly. For the next few moments, I want you to stop thinking about your weakness and begin reconnecting with your natural strengths. At this point, as if the DMIT has not happened or any intelligence test has not been done, just take something that comes naturally to you. Think back to moments in life where something felt naturally easier or energizing for you. Maybe helping people, maybe explaining things like a teacher, maybe creating or leading, observing, maybe solving problems, organizing things, or say understanding emotions, communicating, or learning visually. These are certain examples. Then think over it. What comes naturally to you? What energizes you from inside? And now ask yourself gently, what activities make me feel naturally engaged rather than emotionally forced? Naturally engaged rather than emotionally forced. Be clear and ask another question. When do I feel most confident naturally? When do I feel most confident naturally? Not because of validation, not because of comparison, because something within me feels connected while doing it. That emotional connection. And now, reflect on this honestly. How much of my life currently supports my natural strengths? How much of my life currently supports my natural strengths? And if the answer feels uncomfortable, that's okay. Awareness is where change begins. Always remember that. Now, place your hand gently on your heart and silently say to yourself, my strengths matter. Speak it loud. Speak out loud. My strengths matter. I do not need to become someone else to feel valuable. I do not need to become someone else to feel valuable. Understanding myself is part of my growth. Understanding myself is the part of my growth. Now take one slow breath in and slowly bring your awareness back and exhale. Take one more. Slow breathe in and exhale. So I would request whenever you do this, if required, you can do it with your eyes open. It's just that you have to bring that awareness when you're doing it. And if required, when the recordings get uploaded, try to stop wherever you need. Write out those questions. Keep it handy. Maybe do that 2, 3 times. Not on the same day though, but then you can try it some other day, one after the other, and try to feel that just to bring that temporary clarity. And before we close today, I want you to remember something extremely crucial, that self awareness really changes lives. Believe me. Because when people understand themselves more deeply, they stop forcing comparison, living only through pressure alone, and the worst, questioning their self worth, constantly questioning their self worth. And that is really takes longer time to repair once damaged. And especially for children and teenagers, early understanding can prevent years of confusion, self doubt, and emotional disconnect. We often hear distressful news around that becomes a bigger question in the society. Are we there to help our kids? Are we able to help our kids to prevent those years of confusion, self doubt, and, you know, overcome this emotional disconnect? Because understand, many people, many students rather, they are not lacking capabilities. Every kid is born with some or the other capabilities. It's just that we crush it unknowingly or knowingly with some kind of a pressure, external force. They simply have not been understood correctly yet, and for the same reason, that becomes very difficult for them to grow in that environment. And this is why I deeply value the work I do with the kids, with the adults. That is emotional intelligence coaching here, counseling, DMIT based self awareness, and along with DMIT, the step by step guidance on defining or finding, discovering their purpose. And we just spoke about in the last 2, 3 sessions that purpose is not a job. It's not a one-stop solution. It evolves, and you have to let it grow. Not to decide someone's future for them. This is not something, again, we are pressuring them that, okay, once we are done with this and you are sorted and this is what is your future. No, this is a scientific way of giving them that direction, giving them that clarity, the way to think ahead, to help them understand themselves with that needed clarity so that they can become more emotionally aligned on the choices that they make, whether it is learning, career, relationships, and life direction. That's why I say the earliest done is the better, because then the rest all steps, because after learning the career comes, then the relationships comes, and along with all of this life's direction comes. Hence it's very crucial we do it in the early stage so that it makes things much easier. Like I That's the best line I could say. It's an insurance for the investment that you do always. And that's always a one time investment that you make on these tools, which will help them to identify themselves. And if today's session resonated with you, if somewhere within you, within yourself, or while thinking about your own child, you realized maybe we need deeper self understanding instead of more comparison, you are most welcome to connect with me. We can explore, we can discuss natural strengths, learning patterns, career alignment, emotional well being, and purpose guidance together. The first call, I'm just one discovery call away to help you here. Because the earlier someone understands this, the healthier and more confident their growth journey becomes. Their entire life direction becomes, you know, more clearer, more healthier, most importantly. With this, I hope this really changed something with the mindset. Something would have lightened up your thought process. With this, thank you for being here today. Take care of yourself, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Bye for now.